We're back again. Low production value movie reviews for all you naysayers that want to rip me to shreds in the comment section, because I've been doing this for years and I haven't bought a more professional camera. Anyway, today's movie review is a VHS that I picked up yesterday, and lo and behold, I have 2 copies, albeit they have 2 different boxes. So I will be sending this movie to my friend Jonathan down in Santa Ana, who is also a VHS collector. Today we will be reviewing 1935 Best Picture winner, Mutiny on the Bounty, starring Clark Gable and Charles Laughton. Those will be the 2 people that are highlighted on the box you see right there. And there was other great actors in there, but I didn't dig deep. This particular version features the original theatrical trailer. So, in my hallway, since I've been married, we've been married a year or 2, at a thrift shop, I have a German lithograph of the HMS Bounty hanging on the wall in our hallway in various homes that we've lived in, and it's always made the cut to come with us. So I remember seeing the 1962 version of this film starring Marlon Brando, and I believe they have female frontal nudity of the Polynesian natives in that movie, if I'm not mistaken. Controversial for the era. So that movie was a cinematic color film. But this particular movie, glorious black and white, as it was meant to be seen, directed by Frank Lloyd. Didn't really dig too deep into his career because there's things that I want to talk about the original story. This is based on a book of the same name, and it was a 2-author book. Also, dropped the ball, didn't get the name of the people that authored that book. Storytelling at its best, says Leonard Maltin on the back of the box. But all that to say, this film was very polarizing. If you've watched my review of Captain's Courageous, which very few people have. My phone is going off with text alerts. And another one that's came out in a similar time period, that John Ford movie, Drums Along the Mohawk. Movies from this era are not going to appeal to everybody. So Rotten Tomatoes gives this movie 96%, but Google reviewers are only 38%, and IMDb 7.6 out of 10. If you were looking past the fact that Clark Gable is playing an Englishman and has no accent, then you could accept this movie. And if you're looking at the fact that it's a movie of its time, right? I am 5 out of 5 on this movie. How do I gauge that? I got emotional. It stirred my feelings. It captivated me. I watched this 2-hour and 12-minute movie in one sitting, and I did not lose interest. To me, the standout performance was of Charles Laughton and his rendition of the Lieutenant Captain William Bligh, who would be set adrift, and him and all the other loyalists, I think 18 loyalists in a dinghy, went 3,500 nautical miles after the whole 1789 mutiny. Now, granted, the mutineers would take the bounty and go back to the Polynesian Islands, and they would end up fleeing, and years later, only one of the mutineers, including the main guy, Christian Fletcher, I think his name was, those guys were all dead. I think only a handful were found living, and they'd kind of intermingled with the Polynesians on another remote island after fleeing British justice for some 20 years. But this movie was redone a couple of times, like I mentioned, 1962 version. There's a 1984 version that I also have on VHS. I have yet to watch it, starring Anthony Hopkins and Mel Gibson, which I will be interested to review that and compare it to this one. It's dated, but it feels very well done. As far as 18th century sea epics go, I liked it. There's like these great character actors in 1930s films. There was like this sailor who's like the local drunk of the ship, and he was great. And then there's like one of the other second in command guys. He was really good. So overall, like I said, 1935 Best Picture winner. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, but it only won 1, didn't even get Best Director. It's a movie of its time, and if you can take it as that, and if you can't get into the classics, you're not going to enjoy this movie. If you're just kind of a lover of cinema and you're willing to give anything a try, you will enjoy it for the story. And they take creative liberties and they kind of don't share the full story. There was parts that they left out in the little synopsises that I read online of the real life situation, but I like that it gave humanity to people, and it kind of like, you see, it brought reform to the Royal Majesty's Navy, where they were striking people with nine tails, and the whole Captain Bligh was such a tyrant. You know, his actions pushed the people to be mutineers. And bad things happen because of it, but then good things happen too because of they weren't so. If you ever watched Outlander, part of it is they talk about in the Outlander books is because of that's really they try to be historically accurate. If you're into the historical fiction, you read about the Pressman Gang, and if the British Navy was sailing and they didn't have enough people, they would go into nearby villages and they would force people into service. So I get it, what people were pissed off that they were basically forced to sail the seas and stripped their family against their will. We live in a more civilized age, but it's just interesting to see through the cinematic arts of motion pictures a glimpse into the past. Is it as authentic as other movies? I don't know. There's a book that I have, I think it's called 12 Years Before the Mast. I'm interested to read that. But I like seagoing movies. I like sea history and the whole glory days of the sailing ships. And they call this the golden age of cinema. So check it out. Comment down below. I recommend it. Maybe it's not for everybody, but fans of the cinema will appreciate it. I just couldn't. The thing that bothered me is, like I mentioned early on, I couldn't get past the fact that they have American actors that didn't even really attempt to have British accents playing British people. So I feel like some of the authenticity was lost for me. As period correct as they could have made it in 1935, right? But besides that, it was a stirring film, and I enjoy it. Until next time, we'll see you then.